Okay, should be me. And that's not working properly for me. There we go. That should be better. Okay. So, as with everything in this entire project, and good morning online, my apologies, and Emporium guy. As with everything in this project, one thing creates another thing, creates another thing, creates another thing. So yesterday I got the attachments working, so I could get attachments in here, right? This will not allow you to delete attachments. I actually created a local storage provider, so this does not use Azure, so it's not going to run my my build up. So there's a local storage provider now. So now I have the option of configuring that. So later on, what I'll do is I'll make it so that I can, you know, store that. But now there's an interface, it works fine. Loki, for some reason, is sat in the other room barking at things. I don't know what he's barking at, but anyway. So I created an attachment, so I got that up and running. That now stores attachments. I restarted some of the services and verified that messages were coming through, so changes were getting there, and attachments were comments were getting there, attachments were there. So things are flowing. The user drop down. This is something that I need to look at. So the problem seems to be that when I'm creating the user, I don't mark them as active. So the idea being that, and this is why I got into communications, I was like, oh, well, I don't send the invite. But then I realized I don't send an invite for your first sign up. So the first user to sign up for the tenant doesn't get any email or confirmation from me. So that was fun. I also registered for Mailtrap so I can send these emails. So if you invite somebody else to use the application, that should work. And so I've got that configured with the domain and everything like that. So I was verifying that. So right now, what I'm doing is I'm getting the communications components in place. This is not easy to test, and I'm not sure that's going to work. So we need to at least run this part up first. But I don't know how to validate it. Oh yeah, I do. Yes, I do. Much as I don't like bringing up secrets and stuff. That's what I'll do. I've got to do this part off screen. I can't effectively do this. Okay, so the way this works is let me do this. I need to pull this off screen temporarily so that I can do the secrets. I have no so what I'm going to do, I'm going to test that, and then that's going to be that. That's going to be that. What's that false there? So let me move that over there. Now I've got the secrets off the screen, so that's good. So email provider, email, MailKit, email provider. Okay, so that's fine. Authenticate. Yeah. Send email. Okay. So now I should be able to run this and add myself as user. Morning, Doctor. How you doing? Implementing Mediator in my codebase finally. Nice. So you wrote your own there, from what I saw. Sorry, I didn't reply yesterday. I was diverted. You put your own implementation in there, or did you use a library? Gotcha. Okay. What made you do that way rather than pulling a library in? Not sure it was a very conscious choice. Okay, with that running, what we do now is we go to, this is going to be messy. Yeah, still need to fix that as well. Return to, yeah, see, that still doesn't work fine. I knew the code was at the point, the pattern would make a lot of sense. I figured implementing it myself was the natural way to do it. Nice. I have no issue with doing it yourself. It's a relatively simple pattern to follow along with. It's just, yeah. There's libraries out there now. Oh, what did you log in as then? I'll have to log in this. Yeah, let's log in. So I end up installing different browsers. I need. Oh, it does not deal well with that, does it? LS SQL Server, tenant management. You think I'd know this user by now, wouldn't you? Like the email, everything about it. Basically, the three main classes interfaces in development. Handler. You 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 literally made it a mediator. It does exactly what a mediator should do. By the definition of a mediator. Whereas in reality, oh, come on, why is this not working? There we go. Okay. Yeah, so the thing that struck me is when I looked at the mediator pattern and I looked at the mediator implementations, to me it felt like there was a central hub involved in like figuring out who should get what when. Um, and that's kind of how I built it. And it is doing that. It's just yeah. To me, it seemed when I first implemented it, I called it a message router, and before I knew what the mediator was, because I don't go looking for patterns, do I? So when I first implemented it myself, I decided that the idea was to send commands to other places, so I called it a message router. Didn't really think about CQRS. I'm still not certain I like using the mediator for query. Okay, so if this is working, I should be able to add user. The question is, when do I get the email? And did I start up? Is communications in my full stack? Consumer is in the full stack. The verified domain that it's coming from. The thing is, in the past, everything's worked fine here, so I have no reason to believe that it won't get the email. I just don't see any errors. I just want to validate this before we go too far. Let me localhost 8080. Ooh, that's not good. That didn't send. My user registration failed. Now this part isn't critical to you being able to log in and test it. So I have to decide how much I'm going to dedicate to this. Post. Workflow. Registering the user workflow. Oh, what are you doing? Every single time recently. Yeah. Every single time this happens. That's going to fail again. Let's see. Yeah, it didn't register the user. It added a blank user. Oh, interesting. Okay. Let's have a look. Why is that? dark. Okay. Add user. Five or two API users. I bet I don't have a gateway for it. I bet that's the problem. I bet there's no gateway rule set up for it because I haven't used it in a long time. And this is the problem that I'm going to hit time and time again. It's not necessarily that I'm the system's becoming bad or whatever. It's the fact that there's so much of the system that I can't fit it all in my head at once. And I end up in a world where I'm like, what do I need to do now? What do I need to do now? So the more distributed I make the system, yes, it API users, tenant management cluster should go there. Bad gateway. API users. But yeah, as I jump around and work on one thing, I'm gonna lose track of another thing, and it's gonna be ever harder to stay on top of these things. Which is why writing code in the best way you can is the right thing to do. Right? You write it, you don't put a load of stuff in there you think you might need. You don't put code in there to solve a problem you think you're going to have down the line. You don't just write the code you need for the task you need to do now, and the code is less cluttered. Users transform API users goes to users slash, which should go into tenant management, which should go into the users. Should post into users. It failed on pre-flight though, not on actual post. Yeah, and that's not uncommon. We had a meeting the other week where basically that's all we were talking about is like, what do we mean when we say refactor? Because some people think of refactoring as a major overhaul of code. Some people think of refactoring as so more akin to redesign. People think of refactor more as restructuring what we have. Yeah. So, but people do blur those lines. So I can see how. So why am I getting a 502 on the pre-flight? So this is the error that's coming back. And that's a common problem. Look at everything we do. There's always interpretation. It's why you can't worry about getting everything perfect and understanding, like, because there's never one perfect definition. And the more you chase that, the more, you know, you're going to be in a world of hurt. Keep chasing perfection with software development. Like, there's no easy answer. Why do not work? API users, the gateway is configured with a catch-all, and it goes to users catch-all. And it goes to the tenant management cluster, which is the right thing. That's the only one in there. Let's start that again. I find if two people are arguing different definitions, you really talk past each other. It's easy to correct someone's logic than redefine definitions. All same thing as setting like points and stuff is setting an expectation, so you're both clear on what it is you're talking about. It's why ubiquitous language when we're talking about the software is useful, because we need to make sure we're talking about the same thing, because if we're not talking about the same thing, then our expectations and our actions are going to differ and create problems later on. Actually, like story points now, I think they fall short when you try adding them and using them to estimate time. Basically, too much investment in them seems bad. The time estimation thing should be the concern of management and up. The developers should be tasked with getting the work done and telling and being honest about how long they think it'll take in terms of just the points based upon past experience, right? So the more accurate they point, the more accurate they are on their estimates, and their estimates will generally come together and form an average time, so management can use that. Developers shouldn't think about, the more developers think about deadlines, the more developers think about like time constraints, the more they rush, the more problems they introduce, and that gets bad. That being said, they shouldn't be able to be given free reign on everything and said, "Hey, you can take as long as you want. It's here's what we can get done. You promise you're going to get done." And the team should hold the others accountable, so there shouldn't be any slacking off, because unless your entire team is full of slackers, then yeah. We need this done in a month. As long as this is defined, that's fine. As long as you can say, but yeah, they have to be willing to do that. But do all the developers make that happen? Again, different reasons, right? One person might bottleneck another person, which means that you're actually slowing yourself down. So yeah, well understood scope, easy to estimate. But again, ideally, if there's a project that needs to be done in a month, that should have been visible long before, which means that they should have just put it into the regular workload, and based upon progress, adjusted their expectations. And if they felt like they were getting a little bit tight, um, you know, prioritize some of the other work. That's the goal, so that you don't end up rushing. Because that's when corners will get cut. Oh, unit testing. We don't do unit testing. Not when we're rushing. I don't do unit tests every time in this, mainly because it's just not very entertaining to watch on stream, and people do turn away. But I do go back and put unit tests in. So I need, what the heck? My monitor just switched off and then came back on. I need to understand why this isn't going to send, because I do need to. It's interesting. Okay, apparently there's one email in there there's one in here with no details. But the reason I'm trying to focus on this is because it's this verified. It's the active true. So when I add the user, when I add the initial user, actually, let's worry about that right now. Let's register a new organization. So this user here, right? This workflow, we create the user. I think what I want to do is when I create the user, I want to default to active, and verified can stay as unverified, so we can deal with that later. Active is probably not. Yeah. Mark as active verified. Yeah. So I only change active there. And again, this is the sort of thing now. If I want to get this done, do I rush this change out, and make it work the way I expect it to, for the sake of trying to get this system up and running so people can play with it? Or do I do the right thing here? Right. Um, are there any tests around this piece? There might not be because of, again, concerning organization, when create user returns valid when register, concerning user, publish integration. When creating invitation. So it doesn't look like I've got any specific logic around verification of the user. Yeah. Afternoon, Surly, by the way. Welcome. I mean, again, there's nothing particularly challenging about this. Let's do this. Let's new user. If equals true. Can't do that there because that's the static. So we want to do it by default. That mark as verified. Default to active, mark as verified, so that we know the difference. So the problem there is that the user will be able to log it in, potentially right now. Run unit tests. This doesn't fix this problem though, because this is still, but this will allow it. Basically, what will happen is when I open it up and you register, you'll be able to immediately log in using the password you set. So you won't have to wait, which is the goal there. Okay, everything's passing. So that means I have no tests around verified. Or no, it would actually still pass if I create the user. But that is why when we opened up the application after registering a user the other day, the drop down didn't have any users because there was no active users. So I just marked the user as active and it appeared. I mean, you're building the application to learn and grow from as well. So yeah. The problem with any sample is you've got to validate, how much you're going to gain from it. Are you trying to are you going to benefit from putting that sort of stuff in there? Like, is the code complicated enough to really give you that? But only you know that. Okay, so let's see. So I should be able to see dev tools. Let's drag that over there. Let's clear that. Why are you getting 502? 7285 API users. Why are you getting a bad gateway on? What am I missing? I don't see anything I'm doing weirdly here. Too many people calling for cabs to really make it more complicated. Well, again, I'd complicate it at the right pace. Like, build the stuff you think you need now as you go, and don't be afraid to change things. API users, why are you getting a bad gateway? How do I determine debug API gateway? Oh, here we go. 7078. Really? Is tenant management not up and running? Is that the problem? Tenant management's running. What is tenant management running on? Fumes, services, tenant management. Seven 7194. Where does 7078 come from then? No idea. Hey Zones, how you doing? So what I'm validating here is the fact that my email provider is configured correctly and that the email is going to come from the Liquid Sky domain. And then I can push these changes and get the communications component in there, which will then allow user invites. The initial user doesn't send an email from me. I can set up, it will get an email from auth0. But for auth0 to work with this, I'd have to basically pay for auth0. And I'm not doing that at this point. Okay, add user. When this works, you're gonna have to take my word for it because I'm not I'm not sharing it on stream. There we go. It's another one of those where it's I need to update the UI on it as well. That not publish a user at all. You said you got it. Let's see. Yeah. Active true. Okay, that's at least one step forward. That's interesting. How far would that have got? Well, we don't need to debug the communications pipelines. That's not what I need to be doing. Ultimately, though, that should have been it create the user, it published that piece. There's no communications service bus, not Kafka, because they are command. They are, hey, do this. I know that you exist. Do this. I don't care about your implementation, but do this. Whereas Kafka's, hey, this information's available. Anybody want it? So that's how I use them differently. Okay, let's push these pieces. That makes no difference whatsoever, so that can just go in with something else. Communications. The workflow to create the library. Build. Include email configuration. The email configuration for tenant management is the more important one here. And I can test that off stream. User should be active by default. Created. So we just need to give that a few minutes to run. So if you're new to the stream, you're more than welcome to ask any questions. Right now, the application is semi-running. Is it perfect? No. But with that change going, then at least the users will be active to start, which is a good thing to do. So what I need to do is I need to give this a few minutes to run, because I'm going to need to redeploy the tenant management piece. Gateway's fine. The configuration of Gateway is fine, because in the actual configuration of Gateway is pointing to the service for tenant management, right? So the user's endpoint that I was there, I'm not using that port number there, so that'll be fine. So I've configured Mailtrap, but again, we don't need that right this second, so I don't need to panic about getting Mailtrap installed. I can set the communications piece up later and debug that. When it comes time to test this, you don't need to give a valid email right now. It's not validating your email, but it is. You are going to have to tell me which email you configured, because I'm going to have to add the permissions. Because even if you go here right now and register, all that'll do is allow you to log in and see nothing. Right. Afternoon, Mr. Jones. How you doing? I would say use a real email though, because then later on, I can we can test email notifications. But in this first phase, it won't matter. There's going to be things that aren't working smoothly. So yesterday, again, I got attachments up and running. So yesterday's stream, I just didn't have a great weekend in terms of productivity and in terms of focus. But attachments, I got that working yesterday off stream. Putsbox. Well, the purpose again of this is right now you don't need to use real email to sign up for this, just an email format. It's not going to send any emails unless you do if you add another user, the only way they can get in, when I get that piece working, the only way they can get in is if that is a real email of some form, because otherwise, because it won't work, because it won't verify them. Although I did just change the active, didn't I? So yeah. Right now it'll do what it needs to do. So yeah, again, same thing. It doesn't really matter. How did that create? Yeah, so that user is now valid. Yeah. Oh, that's it. You can't set the password. So if it's not a real email, you're not going to get the invite. So adding extra users is useless at this point. So again, I'm trying to figure out how to structure any testing. I'm trying to make sure that things are working as intended. I'm trying to figure out all that. So let me go over to Docker Hub. I think I created it over here. Yeah. Gotta validate that the build process worked. Docker Hub signs you out so quick. Yeah, tenant management's there. So if I go here and delete tenant management, because it's set to pull the image every time, that will repull the latest image, and that's now going to have the active user fix in there. Yep. I didn't change anything else. Communications wise, I'll configure the rest of this stuff up afterwards. I'm going to put the API key for SendGrid in not SendGrid, Mailtrap. SendGrid I refuse to use anymore. So I can configure this later. This isn't going to be too difficult. This is just, I mean, these are basically copy and paste at this point, setting up these components. Although this is the first consumer from RabbitMQ. Okay. So let's talk about, let's go through this. We're logged in, create a new item, verify workflows. I should be able to use this ticket, this item, planning item, as a verification that everything is working. 12/18/2024. Assign to Jeffrey. Assign projects and test project. Create. That's our current. We click that, it's going to be blank because this is not saved in the local. Everything here is not saved in the store. What I probably need to do is introduce some form of loading where it will show what's not available. Like once it's got there, it's fine. But the reason being, when you click on it there, it goes to the server to get the the GraphQL to get the information. What it should do is test to see if it knows about it. If it doesn't, use the local version. If it does, does it know better? Because the dates are the only way you're not going to know that. Or some sort of hash of the item. Okay, so let's add a requirement. Should be able to add tasks by a requirement. When I click add task, it should show in the backlog. Should be able to add a sprint. When I create a sprint, I should sprint be in the drop down. Should be able to assign tasks to sprints. When I assign a task to a sprint Apex, it should not appear in the backlog. How are you doing? Should not appear in the backlog. Select sprint. Well, good to hear it. I'm good. This is kind of up and running in its first form, which is a good milestone. Seeing tasks in sprint, should be able to select the sprint drop down and tasks that were assigned are visible. Okay, so add a task to prove backlog works. This is a task. It will prove backlog is working properly. Okay, so with that task there, I should be able to go here, go to the dashboard. That's still a problem. Refresh is still a problem. I cannot figure out how to fix that. Yeah, eventual consistency is the problem here, right? It's the when do I store the task, right? Should the planning item, when I add the task, be responsible for, or should the query here be loading from its local data source and fetching in the back end and seeing what's different? So there's a design that I need to understand and get more familiar with on the client side here. So I'm always open to lessons on that one if anyone has any. But either way, this now task to prove backlog works. This is a task that will prove the backlog is working properly. Again, there's no assigned sprint for it. It's ready for development. And here's the requirement it comes from. Again, just to highlight that the requirement is attached. Let's go back to planning items. When I create a sprint, I should see the sprint appear in the drop down. Right. So seeing the sprint. When I create sprint, it should be available to use. And that's what a lot of the little quirks with this are. It's not that it's not working, it's that the eventual consistency aspect of it means that things take time to appear. It could be seconds, it could be milliseconds, right? If it's running nice and fast, everything's fine. And this is why using Kafka is beneficial here, because I can scale that out. If the system was to get busy, I can process more throughput relatively simply. Yeah. Sample sprint. So I can create a sprint here, and this goes from 12 15. Will this let me do this? I don't know. Let's see. 12, 21, 2024. 0900 AM. Yes, it will. Sample sprint. There is some validation. Oh, there's validation on you can't set the start before the end, etc. But there's no validation on when you can set the sprint, which does kind of make sense. So you have a sample sprint, and it is available in the drop down. Right, go back there. There's our sprint. Okay. Planning, verify workflows. When I assign a task to a sprint, it should not appear in the backlog. Tasks should disappear. When I assign a task to a sprint, it should disappear from the backlog. Select the sprint dropdown. The tasks that are assigned should appear. So now if I go over here, right, again, things are loaded on demand. So or when I'm requesting them, what I could do is I could store these in the data store locally once I get the ID back, which means that I can trust that I can click on it. I just can't, I might not have every piece of information for it because it might not resolve things yet. So again, it's more the patterns I'm choosing to use to develop the client system than a backend problem here. And again, this is why I want to when I let you guys play around with this, if you're interested. I don't want to have, well, it's not showing this immediately. I expected to show it. Like, I understand those pieces. I don't want to keep repeating the same feedback. So that's why there is a Discord. Again, right now, the Discord is limited to people who are subbed to the stream because I want to control the pace. And there's a lot of people that have subbed over the last year that I think should get the first digs to give feedback. And then I'll open that up later on. So there is a Discord channel for right this second for the first pass. Yeah, I mean you can sign up and play with this, but for feedback, if you want to give feedback and stuff, yeah, that's how I'm going to limit it. Apex, thank you very much. I appreciate the gifts. Feedback. Well, I appreciate that. Thank you. So yeah, there is a channel that if you've got your Discord linked with your Twitch, hey Pratik, it might be something really random and wrong, but is there a concept of session that you can use here for the bugs you have? So there is. So what? You mean the data not appearing immediately? Is that what you mean? Task should disappear and really random and wrong. No, I'm. There is no wrong. So task should disappear. So when I assign this to the sprint, right, this task disappears because it's no longer in the backlog. So there's two problems going on there. So the first one is because the way the application is built, right? What happens is when the client updates the data, it goes to the backend and writes to the API. The GraphQL API hasn't received that data yet because it requires that information to go through Kafka, publish out, and get. So it's eventually consistent, right? So when I click on the tab, when I click on here, right, backlog, it's making a request to GraphQL. Well, that item hasn't made it all the way through yet, right? There is a local data store that I do insert data into. So if I go to planning item, you'll see that work a bit better. So I go to planning item. I go new item, demonstrate local storage. This should appear almost immediately. 12, 20, 2024, assigned to Jeffrey, right? So you see that assigned, that appears immediately. The reason being that I insert that into the store and then, or actually insert into the store when I save it, right? So when I get the ID back from the server to tell me, yeah, you've captured this information, I immediately inject it into the store and the store refreshes. For these others, I'm not doing that, right? So I just need to go back and make that a more standard thing. It's just a little bit messy for me to keep jumping back and forth between stores. I've got to figure out how to write more idiomatic Angular, but that would fix this, right? The refresh issue is caused by the fact that the requests are being routed to the right component of the system via a Cloudflare tunnel. And even though it's got a capture all, this route is based in Angular. And this isn't a real route. Angular needs to be invoked first. So I need basically anything after this that isn't GraphQL or API to go to the same thing that the root URL goes to, so that it can hand off the rest of the URL. It doesn't matter. I just don't know how to configure Cloudflare. So that's why it won't refresh work. Tasks that are assigned should appear in the sprint. So if we go here again, I'm going to assign this, right? So again, this is linked to the requirement. Alright. So the requirement is understood by the task, right? That's why this is linked. So now if I go back to the sprint screen and go here, sample sprint, I should have 2 tasks. And there we go. Now I can move them. It's funny. This color combination might be actually my favorite in the entire. I kind of like the color combination. It's nice and bold. So yeah, we can move these back and forth. And there we go. Okay, so that's planning. So again, the idea is the review date. You use the review date to set a priority that'll allow you to move up. And so that'll allow you to kind of group, so past due, current, and future. So as the days pass, becomes more current. So the idea is that the current week worth of work would appear in this time window, and anything past due is something you should deal with. Ultimately, again, and communications wise, the idea is that you will be able to subscribe to notifications, that you'll be told, hey, this thing has passed you, and you can say, okay, well, I care about planning items for a specific project, so let me watch for planning items for a specific project, and if they go past due, let me know so that I can kind of follow up and ask if there's anything I want to do. So the idea is very much so that you'll be able to configure your notifications. Let's go to projects, add project, sample project, SP. There we go. So now we go back to planning items. Again, this is another one I think is struggling from, it's struggling from reload. It's actually struggling from, let's go look. 1439, let's pull forward that one. No, not Mongo. Kubernetes view. By the time I've done this, it might be there. There it is. It is there. So this one, I'm not loading all the time. I'm not requesting it. So I've cached it and it's not requesting it. So that is likely on the client side. Services, no, app, shared, components. Do I not have that? Modules, planning, components. Angular is definitely the weaker of my skills. Forms, no. Manage, views, planning items, detail, app requirements. Planning item detail, here you go. So associated projects, multi-select. So I haven't created a controller on this. It uses the project store, but nothing's, that's why. So nothing's reloaded the project store. So when it should be global though. So yeah, this is a learning point, right? So what I need to understand is why, if I go here, see this is loaded. This is from the store, right? But if I go here, that one isn't loading the store. If I refresh, there it's there now. So there is a concept of a global and local version, I believe, and I need to touch. That's why this one is not perfect, because I think I'm not touching the right store when I'm saving things. So it's just a review of going through those pieces. Okay, so if we go to planning, go to that, go to verify workflows. So when I click a task, that's interesting. Why are you not showing tasks associated? Some counts are off there because I'm asking people now, hey, do you want to test this? It's now going to break and not do all the things it was doing before I actually got to this point. So again, if you go to liquidsky.software right now, so let me just explain. You can go and register an account if you want to. You do not have to use a real email. No. If you want to go and register, you can do, but you have to let me know the email you're using to register with, because I need to set that user up to be configured. If you're not a subscriber, I would recommend not doing it right now. If you're a subscriber, you're more than welcome to go and do that now. If you go to liquidsky.software, because there's a forum set up in Discord for you to leave any feedback. And I want to do it that way for a little while, just so that I can kind of manage the feedback, and also, as a thank you for subscribing. I do appreciate the support. So this one is in progress, essentially, right? I should be like, that's in progress. I'm expecting numbers there, which is weird. So there's something missing there. We are missing a few services, I think. Attachments should work. We not have one in module. I should be able to upload an attachment. Yeah, that's there. This is local storage, so if you decide to be malicious, I can't stop that, but I would hope you are not going to do that. Again, I'm only going to activate the subscribers accounts. Requirements, will work on this soon. Again, once this is up and running, Mojo and I are going to use this to plan out what comes next and set some actual control tower and liquid sky expectations. And we'll share the results of that. But from a feedback perspective, what I'm asking for is, do you have any opinions on how it's working? Is the workflow, Does it? Because to me, it makes sense. And the more I've done this, obviously, it feels okay to me. There's a few sticky points. I will agree. But to me, it feels okay. So I'm not going to see the flaws. Like if and the biggest challenge we're going to have from a feedback perspective is most of the people watching the stream are going to be developers, not project management, not product management. And realistically, this tool is not aimed at developers. The idea is that developers get this little piece over here for managing the tasks and assigning the work, ultimately pointing and whatnot, sizing, etc. will come into here, but it won't really be the focus of the application. The focus is very much on these pieces, on these workflows, on this visibility and reporting and notifications. So, but for now, I'm more than happy. So basically, if you decide to go and register, you got to let me know your email that you register it with. It doesn't have to be a real email at this point. You will be able to log in immediately. However, you will not be active because I'll have to actually add the permissions. Yeah. And it highlighted something, Mojo, by the way. You can sign in using the same email you sign into because you're registered in Auth 0 and it's using the same tenant. It creates the tenant data for you on the fly. So it doesn't matter if you've actually got, there's no pre-setup for a new user to register the tenant and do everything else and initialize data at this point. So it just creates data on the fly with that tenant ID. And it's just a grouping ID, which actually works pretty well. So yeah, that is that. And then again, if you are a sub and you want to leave feedback, there is a channel in Discord for creating feedback. Once we got past an initial phase and things are tightened up a little bit and things are smoother, I'll open it up to everybody as a test. But if I see malicious data getting created, if I see any form of attempt to just break it, I'm going to shut it down. Hey, maybe we are winning today. Is developer API on the list? Yeah, that goes to you, Mr. Jones. On what list, Mojo? And why do we need a developer API? Yeah. If I see malicious data being created, I'm just going to shut the entire machine down and lock it off. I'll just shut the tunnel down. And that'll be the end of any testing. Yeah, I need to control the maliciousness. I don't need people just testing, because right now the application's not in a place where it can sustain any sort of true malicious attempts, right? It's just not going to work. It needs hardening. But if I try and harden as I go, I'm going to end up with just constantly just doing the dull things. I'd rather understand some of those things at the time I can control that feedback. So changes are flowing through. There's the attachment happening. There's a status being changed. Should be able to add a comment. Again, this one suffers from, yeah. I was onboarding a new employee yesterday and creating all the accounts. Manually took some time. Now I want to automate it. Yeah. Adding a comment should work, but it won't show immediately. This one's a strange one because it actually saves, but the store doesn't. It goes into the store, but it doesn't show it immediately. So I'm not sure about that one. HubSpot, Office, Jira, etc. Right. So that's where you're. Yeah. See, adding a comment should work. So that's gone through the through Kafka and published out again and got back down to the view. But it should have added to the store immediately. So what you're talking about is an API for people being brought onto systems so that you can just say, yeah, register the user. Okay, so you can do that. You can do sample project. That's done. What I'll do is I will leave Liquid Sky up and monitor it as well. So if people do want to give it a test, they can do. And then, yeah, integrations. Well, that's a whole world away. If I'm honest, that's definitely not a 6-month goal. You need to get to the point where you're big enough that people want to do integration. Okay. So let me. Yeah. Tenant management, DBO. So how am I going to do this? So here's what I want to do. I need to kind of document this a little bit, don't I? Sub only. Twitch sub, sadly. I am not big enough on YouTube to have subscribers or to have members. Sub only. Do I have to use a real email in this version? It does have to be email format, but it does not have to be a real email. It will not send any emails at this point. If you try and add a user, once I get that piece up and running, it will need to be a real email. So if you try and add somebody else into the system to be able to log in the first time, they have to set that password. To set that password, they have to be able to get the email to follow the link. So in that Discord channel that is set up for subscribers, and if you can't see it, just let me know. Yeah, in that Discord channel, provide me the email that we used, and I can activate that account. Basically, you won't have the permissions to do anything. So if you sign up for this, you can go through the sign up process quite fine. But then you'll go to log in and you'll see nothing. You won't be able to create anything. You won't be able to do anything because everything will just error in the background because there's no permissions at all. So it's completely useless without being able to be set up. And yeah, I think that's yeah, there's not much more there. So in the meantime, let's get on with communications piece being deployed. So again, the ads will start shortly. Today will be fun. Apparently, we sent out feedback survey to users. My boss messaged us yesterday and said, we've got a list of things to work on. No. Got a list of things to triage and discuss. You'd have a list of things to work on just because the users said they want things. Not the point. So when we've talked about, actually on that point, when we've talked about planning items before, we've talked about a few ideas around. So right now this is title and description, but ultimately this is going away and this will become purpose or reason essentially. So the idea is, what is this planning item? What are we actually trying to describe in this planning item, right? What is our reason for it existing? And also we want to put on the value, like the customer value. I've got some notes around that on whether it's, should it be monetary? Should it be, as one user reported it? Like, is there a great benefit to everyone? Yes. likely you've likely had it reported and put in there. But again, you shouldn't be looking at a list of things to work on from the survey. You should be looking at the list, triaging and identifying what you know about, what you don't know about, and discussing it that way. So that's not the way to think about feedback. Feedback from the users. I open this up. You guys give me feedback. I don't like this. I don't like this. I think it should put this here. I think it should put this here. Oh, it doesn't make sense that this works this way. That's great feedback, but I've got to validate it against everybody else using it. Did everybody else have a challenge with that? Was there an actual bug? Is that bug been reported 10 times? Right. Again, that's why I'm trying to figure out how to make this workflow usable so that like I'm getting the right feedback at the right times. I don't want people just continually reporting the same bugs because I'm one person. I can't just go off and fix everything. And I don't want to fix everything in response. I want everything to be measured and understood and iterative. And if you just go and react to a list of things, the user should not be dictating how the software is written. So yes. So anyway, the value, like the expected value, so that people can see, oh, this work has more priority because it has more it has customer value versus business value, or it's innovation versus um, um, uh, like request driven. So yeah, that's the goal of the planning items. So the planning items are able to show the business, here's what you're working on and here's why you're working on it. The developers can go to this for the reason, but also their requirements are going to outline the reason for what the tasks are attached. So again, many tasks can be assigned to a requirement, whereas if we're using Jira right now, this would be the story, and these could be tasks attached to Jira stories. Whereas this is more, a planning item is more akin to an epic. It can be small or large. It could have many or few requirements, but the idea is the requirements are what drives the development and is understood from the business, right? I want to be able to do these things. How I do them is not my concern, but I want to be able to do them. And the tasks are, outlining, here's the actual work. Just realized I always put that in twice in a minute. So if you are new to the stream, you are more than welcome to ask any questions. I am open to feedback and opinions in general. You do not have to be able to use this to be able to give the feedback. I'm not saying I'm soliciting feedback only from people who are subscribed. I'm just saying that people who subscribe can log into this if they want to and play with this. But in general, there's a lot of software here. There's a lot of pieces. But if you are interested, you're more than welcome to chat about it. I do not have to be coding to be productive. I'm going to be upset if we don't get the data, but we have a meeting over it. Well, if that list of things is, again, I'm going to equate to this because it's the most visual I have right this second. If you log into this now and say, I can't see initiatives, or I want to be able to do I want to be able to reorder requirements, something like that, right? And it's just you saying it. There's nothing telling me why you want to reorder requirements. What feature are you lacking that needs you to be able to reorder requirements? And I come to that one because that's one I thought about. Do I need to do that? Should I do that? Is there a priority to a requirement, right? There's lots of questions that should be asked before I just react to that. Because I could take, I want to reorder requirements and run off and implement reordering of requirements. But I might misunderstand why you want that, right? If you said, I need to be able to reorder requirements because requirements have a level of priority and should be focused on above other requirements. So if we can make the decision as a business to say, okay, they might be requirements, but we'll let them slide a little bit, right? So that explanation can give you more of a purpose and more of a reason. So then I can put something in here to say, okay, we need to reorder requirements. Requirements are, business focused, and they should be outlining things, but they can also be dismissed if we feel that the major requirements have been done. We might want to release this early so that we can move other requirements to other planning items. Oh, look, we've got another requirement, moving requirements from planning item to planning item. So by having that conversation, you can actually open up more requirements, not to overload that term. So it's worth doing, but yeah. So it depends on what that list comes with. If users have been reporting the problems and they're just using it as a feedback session, and that's the first time you've seen it, then it's a time to educate on, hey, look, we've had a lot of this stuff. We just don't have any firm expectations around it. Like users saying, I need a bigger antenna on my phone when phones had antennas. But what they really want was better signal and clearer calls. Users are always trying to give you the solution and not the problems they're encountering. Yeah. And again, you've got to determine whether a solution is based upon their understanding of the software or their usage of the software. They might be using it in a very quirky way, their business practice. They might be trying to adapt your software to their business practice, and it doesn't work because your software isn't built to be their business. There's all manner of reasons why. But it's you should not take everything at face value and react to it. That's what you should. If you are taking everything as you understand it, again, it's open to interpretation. It's open to misinterpretation just as much, and then you end up with you could end up with, hey, we've spent 3 months developing this cool feature of reordering requirements. You deliver it, and one user asks for it, and you deliver it, and they're like, well, no, it's just because I added a requirement. I didn't want to move. I didn't want to delete. I wanted them in specific order because it just looked better, right? But no one else needed that. You could have wasted 3 months, but if you'd have asked a few questions and determined why do they need to reorder and how many people, like, it's why things like user voice are a good idea, because asking the users and then being able to go back to the user and say, here's a potential solution. What do you think? Here's what it would do, and here's how it would work, and here's what it would provide you. Boss asked me for a list of users that downloaded a file this year at organizations so he can build them. What he wants is a list of this year's active users. Yeah. So language matters. Yeah. Okay. I need to not be watching active chat. There we go. Okay. Well, and that's a talent for you to learn as well. That's a learning how to ask questions, and again, development teams often suffer from not asking enough questions and not pushing back, thinking that everything that comes from the business is a well thought out requirement and has a reason, is it's an error. Developers should say it why do we need this? What's this for? What are we doing this? And understand why. And if they're told, yeah, because we feel this is going to help us do whatever, they've got a reason. Um, but developers should be encouraged to push back more. Okay, so that's going to go away. What I'm going to do here actually is actually going to do external providers, email, password is, this is going to be, yeah. Because basically what I'm going to do is, and again, I don't know if this works because I haven't actually validated it, right? Because I'm a professional. He said he put it in Jira, which is where I'm going to categorize his request properly. He called me out of and said, I need this report, I'll put it in Jira. Would never put it in Jira. Yeah. There's, there's pain points, right? There's always pain points. Believe that's enough there. Because then the password will actually come from the secrets rather than the actual provider. That should work, he says, with absolute confidence. And no way of testing this right this second. App settings, communications latest. That's what I was validating before. So I know back over here. Communications consumers. So this is the first that didn't even work, so that's fine. GitHub actions. Meep. Type of namespace extensions does not exist in the namespace. What? What? I don't know what you're talking about. Communications infrastructure consumers. Pretty sure that's running. No changes. That build's just fine. Warnings are fine, right? There's like that's a passing to itself. It's gonna use options. I took it away, didn't I? Thought I took it away. I had options initially. Email, mail kit provider. Yeah, there you go. That's why. So that should trigger the build at least. Sorry, I'm just trying to type up that while I'm waiting for that to build. This should build now. So it's just the fact that it had a reference to something that doesn't work. There we go. Okay. That should have built and pushed. Therefore, I should see a builds tags. Yep. Okay, I have the image. So we can go over here now. Communications, consumers, latest. RabbitMQ Kafka. I don't need in this one. There's no Kafka actual component in communications at this point. So the idea of communications is it sits out here right this second. So when a notification is used, it will push a notification. Right now, it pushes a notification via service bus to the view. Ultimately, the inbox and stuff will come out of here and be a component. There'll be an API component to communications as well. And any form of communication with the user should go through here. So from anywhere in the system, I can say, hey, notify this user of something. And they can be, that could be an email, a text, a push notification, whatever. But the user can configure their communications preferences, and I don't care, right? They can be notified. So if there's a part in the system that needs to communicate, it can send a command to say, communicate with the user. Here's the user ID, and the communications can channel that communication to the user in the right form. Some notifications, and ultimately there'll be another piece of the changes pipeline that is basically constantly checking for data changes, like time elapsed, etc. So if a planning item expires or goes past the due date, then it will also notify the user. So really abstracting communications from all of the rest of the application. So the entire application doesn't need to necessarily care about email. That being said, it can send an email. So there is a command here to send user registration email, right? That is an actual email. I care about email. But if I wanted to communicate with a specific user, I could actually send a generic communication is the intent. So communications wraps that up. It'll wrap up all SMS, push notifications, etc. eventually. So right now, I've got a GraphQL subscription in here. It's an authenticated GraphQL WebSocket as part of the GraphQL API. What I'll do is I'll move those components over to here and have communications as a completely different thing than the view. So the view is just data and has no push or whatever notifications, but then there's a push channel. So rather than use Signaler, which would be my other option, I use the GraphQL piece because then I can subscribe to it as well and use the same components. And you can actually use it so it'll say, oh, here's the data, and it'll subscribe and pull the data it needs, is the way I understand it so far. So we'll be doing more of that later. Okay, that's that. But yeah, I see that there's more people in here today. If you are interested, if you have any questions, thoughts, opinions on what I'm doing, please feel free. more than happy to talk about the software and explain. But there's a lot of it, so it's not easy to discuss. View usages. Yeah, that's fine. All makes sense to me. Hi, Granger. How you doing? No. Refactor? Oh, it's a refactor. That's what it's called, is it? Don't need that. Don't need persistent volume claim. Good to hear it. Need a lot of things that you were talking about in my day job as well. Ah, nice. Yeah, I wish I could say I got to use a lot of these in my day job, but I don't. So I'm kind of putting a lot of this into place where I've not had the opportunity to do a lot of this. So trying to grow. That one. Okay, to do that, I'm going to need to Lumi set config email password secret. Yeah, a lot of this is a it's been fun to play with to put all these technologies together. I've used a lot of them. GraphQL is the only technology I haven't really used in any sort of production. So it's kind of fun to be exploring them. Did I sign into Pulumi with GitHub or did I sign into Pulumi using my own username? Yeah. I like, so the way this is set up, I like being able to, control the data I'm seeing, being able to pull, there's views set up in here, so it's optimized for that. It's pulled into entity framework, so I'm getting the not working. Projection and stuff. So I'm getting more accurate queries. It was a bit of a pain to customize it from Neo4j-DB, otherwise it's super nice to use an RAPI. Yeah. So I'm getting a good benefit of using it here. Obviously, you have to think more about the data, so that's why I've put everything behind actual views. So this ViewDB context, these panning items, users, etc., are actually behind SQL views, so I can limit the amount of data that you actually have access to. But overall, I think it's a reasonable way to use it, and it feels very smooth. Resources settings, resources. Overview. Let's see if this even runs up. So communications, let's do communications. Refactoring the Pulumi stuff later on is going to be quite a challenge. See if that adds communications. This may or may not work. We'll find out. So I've got to learn how to do, I've got to figure out, not learn necessarily, well, learn and figure out how to make it so that when I reload, it doesn't, the API gateway doesn't break everything. 5 to create communications service config map deployment secret. Okay, yeah, that makes sense. Sorry, I'm checking on things while I'm waiting for that to load. What day is it? It's only Tuesday. Oh no. Just put a meeting on my schedule for 9:30. Which means I'm running out of time. Okay. Oh, there you go. At least it deployed. Let's test it. I don't think that worked. Hey, let's test. Users. Oh, that errored. Oh no, it didn't. Why didn't it reload? Ah. Okay, that went through. I'm not going to bring my email. I mean, I know that just shared my email, but that was available anyway. No, that did not get through that point. Even if it did, it wouldn't have got through. Pods. Yeah, mass transit. Okay. Group address token and offset. Okay, so there's some. Oh, that didn't. That didn't not fail. That actually tried. That actually did. Wow. Okay. That got as far as sending the email. Um. Some provider's email. No, that shouldn't matter. Stacks. Did that? I'm worried about the password not being configured. Email password is there. Okay. Yay. Now, do you build the machine or do you order pre-built? Memory says I saw you the other day on mini PC. Cool. Dual tank. Gotcha. So the Liquid Sky app is running off a mini PC right now. This is running on a Ryzen 8 core with 32 gig. It's a 7000 Ryzen. I'd be tempted to develop off one, but Liquid Sky alone on my development machine takes about. I need a lot of memory. This machine is running pretty much a constant 64 or 60 gig of memory usage out of the 128 I've got. But I would be tempted to use some of the mini PCs for development. If I was doing work development, I'd happily use a mini PC. Okay. Okay. Is the problem one of me not copying the right pieces, app modules, communications, API app settings? So what I've found is that oftentimes I get bitten by the fact that I'm copy and paste happy with these things. So I've got to make sure that I use the right things. Dual 10 gig and dual. Wow. B-Link implies its existence of a bird link. Big systems up until now. Gotcha. I have a PC for development, a PC for gaming, or two PCs for gaming, one in the living room, one in my office. The consoles are set up. I do have an actual dedicated PC for streaming, which I've kind of fallen away from the last 6 months because the summer meant I couldn't run both PCs at once and have air conditioning. But yeah, I did have a dedicated stream PC, and I probably would go back to that. I need air conditioning in this room, yeah. In the summer here, it gets into the high 90s, so well into the 30 Celsius temperatures. So yeah. Okay, so that's that. Yeah, yeah. My game PC is spec'd out for gaming. My dev PC has more memory, not as good a graphics card, and my stream PC did have a decent processor at the time. Um, Actually, that might get swapped out because I do have a spare 5800X 3D now. Not that makes a big difference for streaming coding, but I have some spare parts. Let me just try and push that one. There was a minor change there. No. Why? But I think, apart from this piece, which is not really critical, adding extra users is not really something I want to be playing too much around with. I think that we are in a place where the application is functional enough to be tested. This is concerning me. The counts here are a bit weird. This might be missing a store proc. The good news is it's working still, which is, no, it won't be a store proc. It'd be the view that's wrong. Task counts. Yeah, they're off. Task counts by planning item. Task counts by requirement. modify view. That's a pretty simple. That's about as simple a view as it can get from requirements. Why do I have the counts on there? Oh, because I link, yeah, I link them in. Okay, I just joined them in. That's why. So it looks consolidated, but it's not. Requirements, planning items, ready for planning, in progress preparing, requirements, tasks, ready for development. Oh, because we don't have a ready for development. Why is that status not updated though? Okay, there's some bugs to look at. So these are associated with a sprint. They shouldn't be ready for development, I don't believe. Backlog. That's the problem. Backlog. I have only backlog. I do not have ready for development, so they've kind of disappeared. There we go. There's a bug to look at. First thing. Okay. Did this deploy? Now, I don't think that'll retry. So I don't think I'm gonna have much luck with that one right now. Yeah, that won't retry. So that's okay. And again, these are the things that I'm going to discover now as I start to use the application more, as I start to actually work in the application and build the pieces out. Is now slowing myself down long enough to say, okay, I can't fix everything. I believe though we are at a point where things are deployed, things are generally working the way that I want to focus on right now. So at that point, I'll commit all the changes, make sure everything's branched properly, fix up the pipelines so that only when we do a release does it actually push to the images now. So there's a little bit more tidy up on that piece, but we are making progress, which is good. Again, if you are interested in learning more about this project, if you're interested in the components, if you'd like to ask more questions, there is a Discord linked in the cards below on both YouTube and on Twitch, and you're more than welcome to ask questions. This is not an open source project. I do share some of the components. However, for the most part, it is closed source. That being said, developed on stream for over, well, many streams. I've developed a lot of this on the stream, so there's a lot of content. So rather than just kind of knee-jerk react to this now, what I'll start to do is actually clear this out, create a user and a tenant that I can use, and then get myself and Mojo in there and start planning out some of those pieces. So, nah, it don't work. try parse group address token off. Mailbox address parse. Oh. Source open rather than open source is a term Jeff Fritz used on stream, in that he developed the source on stream and discussed it, but didn't release the source code through GitHub, etc. Yeah, it's not bad. That's not a bad term for that, I suppose. It's yeah. I mean, you'd be hard pressed to go through and figure out everything that happens. You know, like I'm not worried about people copying this if they choose to. As I've learned, people, you know, there's no way you can spend enough time to pay attention to everything I'm doing. But that's not actually why I'm worried about it. It's more the primary reason why this is not open source is that I do want to see if I can make this a product. But other than that, even if I open source it, there is so many moving parts. It's just not an easy open source project. This is not something you can just pick up and run with. It just doesn't make sense to anybody. So I need to go through and test this in my local environment, I think, because I think what's happening is the communications piece where it's failing. This invitation is in the provider send email. So it is getting to this piece. Either because my email's bad. And I changed that API, didn't I? Derp. That's why I changed the API. I changed it so that the email can be null. You can't stop me. Yeah, have fun. Change the arguments on send email. Didn't change the caller. Okay. So the problem there is it's not. I switched it so that this could be null on the end, so that when I send an email, I can have a default sender. In this case, I actually want my user to be the one that's sending the email. But we'll test that. We'll verify that. But yeah, now we get into a world of going through, verifying the behavior, writing the actual items to track them, seeing how that works. Because the big thing I've got missing from this, by the way, is I have no ticketing system. This is not a ticketing system. So using it as a ticketing system is not going to be the best way. So everything that I record, I'm going to have to record and figure out how to plan around it. Point zero. Thank you very much for the sub. Appreciate it. How you doing? So yeah, so not using it as a ticketing system is going to be key because it's not the intent, right? So this is not, oh, I can't, you know, the numbers here. What that actually means is I really need to consider how these are done and what, because initially I wanted them to be very dynamic, but now they are kind of static. And is the value really? Do I just need to show progress on here? Morning, Napalm. How you doing? Okay, so that should have pushed. I've got to go, so fine. Sometimes I get here to see improvements while I'm doing mine at work. Well, I appreciate the sub. Very much appreciated that. And I'm glad you get to come and hang out from time to time. Okay, so that has pushed. So I can now just go and delete that pod. And it will repull the image, which means it will get the latest version. Okay, so let's test that once more. Because I don't think that's going to resend. I don't think that's going to queue up any messages. I think because once it's gone, it's gone. Again, that's one of the things we're going to have to tinker with. We're going to have to tinker with. Why didn't it add that third user before? That's interesting. I thought that showed before. No. Okay, let's go and see if that failed in a different way. Or does it not get there yet? That's another option. I wanted so much for that to work. That would have been good, but it does not work. Yeah, I don't think that's doing what I want it to right this second. So anyway, yeah, it failed before. I don't know why. Okay. Let's go raid Anna. She's working on C# generator stuff. So I gotta run because I got a meeting. So apologies. Yeah, if you are a subscriber, you are more than welcome to join the Discord and look at the channel. Again, provide me the email you use. I will leave the machine on for a few hours. Again, I will wipe out the machine routinely and reset everything. So don't actually create anything meaningful. But I would love any and all feedback provided in the Discord channel if you have it. And yeah, so I'll be back tomorrow for more of this, and hopefully. Yeah, so let's go raid Anna. She's working on C# generator stuff with CLI, but I gotta run. I got a meeting to attend. I gotta get some breakfast. So take care. Apex, thank you very much for the gift sub. Wayne, thank you very much for the sub. We appreciate that. One Lion, as always, thank you for the support. Thank you for the shout outs. I do appreciate you a great deal. Thank you for your stream. Take care, all. Have a great rest of your day. Bye.